Good evening, everybody. My name is Tanisha, and I am joined here with Alexandra. How are you doing this evening, Alexandra?
I'm great.
All right. And so we are bringing to you today our topic of why learn coding. It's a hot button issue that's been out there, and we are really happy to have a little quick discussion with you today about why, or, maybe why not, you should learn coding. So we're going to go ahead and dive into our content. I am going to go ahead and turn off my camera. And Alexandra, tell us about our resource shout out.
Perfect. Well, joining us tonight, you will see additionally some video links here where we delve in further for both adults and children. Some of the organizations online that have free coding tutorials, as well as some items that are free with also paid to get different certification and just helping you out more specifically for the kids, for instance, ages 5 and younger versus kindergarten through 5th grade, and then our teens and adults.
All right, thank you so much for that, Alexandra. And of course, these are our YouTube videos, so they can be found on the library's YouTube channel. So, what exactly is coding? So, my definition is very, very simple, as you can see. Broadly speaking, coding is telling a thing to do a thing. So this is the definition that I give to our younger kids out there. So to our school age kids when they're just learning the basic concept of coding. And that's really a broad way of speaking of what exactly coding is. As we will go and delve into a little bit later, coding is a little bit of a loaded term. And so when people hear it, it's one of those buzzwords, but in its simplest sense, it's telling a thing to do a thing. So prime example of that, in one of the coding classes that I have for the little ones, for the younger kids, we have these little tiny robots that are programmed to follow different color lines. So a kid can literally scribble a little picture and then get the robot to follow their scribbles on the line. They're technically coding. It may not be anything super high tech, but they are telling that little tiny robot to follow their scribbles on paper. So telling a thing to do a thing. Let's talk about some of the benefits of learning to code. So one of the biggest ones, and this goes for grown-ups, for adults, and it goes for kids, it teaches problem-solving skills. So this is obviously no matter what field you go into, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're doing something for leisure, if you're doing something for work. This is something that everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to know how to solve problems. So coding is an excellent way of teaching problem solving skills.
Tanisha, not just that, a lot of people would refer to coding as being able to step back and break a problem into the smaller portions of the problem to figure out how it's affecting each other. So it's something that can help you identify what the problem is, then troubleshoot to solve that complex task with just a bunch of smaller tasks that you're working on.
Exactly. And thank you. That is such a wonderful segue, Alexandra, because that leads us into our next point. It introduces the idea of computational thinking. And Alexandra just gave a wonderful definition of what that is. So computational thinking is the concept of breaking a larger problem into smaller problems. So coding is excellent for that. It's an excellent skill that can help you not only in the computer sciences or in like the STEM fields, but it's just something that can help you in everyday life. I mean, I know computational thinking is something that I do in my job here with the library. So it's very, very important. And of course, coding is it's a really fun hobby. So it's just something that's really, really fun to do. So one of my favorite parts of my job is, again, I mentioned earlier, is I teach coding classes to school age children. Over in the winter for Computer Science Education Week, I taught the kids how to code a dinosaur dance party. That is something that I got to do for work. It's really fun. So even though it's something that's fun and it may be a little silly, I'm still teaching kids and teaching myself how to code. I'm still learning those problem solving skills. I have to figure out how to get my dinosaurs to dance. That's a problem solve. I got to solve that problem. So it's a very valuable skill, but it's really, really fun. It's also a tangible skill that could lead to better opportunities. And we're going to cover a little bit more about that later because, again, we hear about coding being like the gateway to like high paying jobs and everything, and that may be the case, but we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. So why are we talking about this? Why should you know about it? Why should you be concerned about this topic? As I mentioned before, coding is a buzzword that has been around for a while. So it's something, you know, I know in like presidential reports, we've had several presidents, you know, in the past 20 years talk about the importance of learning to code as far as, you know, job skills, as far as keeping us competitive on a global scale, things like that. So coding has definitely been in the news for a long time now. It's a really, really big buzzy thing. And so we just wanted to have a quick conversation about why the benefits of learning to code, or why you should learn to code, and what are the benefits of coding, and have a little bit of a conversation outside of just, you know, jobs. So it could lead to better job prospects, but we're going to talk about this here a little bit now. So, big question. Should I learn to code or not? And in my opinion, that is a big fat it depends. You really need to think about why you are learning to code. This is really important. If, for example, you know, we all know that doctors make a lot of money. And if you are most doctors make a lot of money. And if you become a doctor, if you work in the medical field, like you have the potential to make a lot of money. I hate blood. There's no way that I could never deal with, like, you know, cutting anybody open or blood or anything. So for me, that's an unrealistic job to have because I would hate it. So think about it that way. If you were just learning how to code because you think it'll be a good job skill, then you may want to rethink it. And of course, while coding and STEM skills are valuable, they do not always translate into better job opportunities. So in some places I know, like there might be like an overabundance of coding jobs out there, and it may be very, very competitive. So just having those skills may not be enough for you to get a job. Now, my next point here, this is really, really important. When discussing the benefits of learning to code with kids, you really should be emphasizing the creative aspects of it and the problem solving aspects. When one of the sad things that I see when I did coding programs in person is that parents were bringing their kids to the program and telling them, kids, you know, 9-year-old kids, oh, this is going to make sure that you get a better job when you're older. What 9-year-old kid cares about what job they're going to get older? They just want to come to a library program to have fun. So leading with, you know, this is going to help you when you're older may not be the most helpful way to get kids interested about coding. Again, this is something that is valuable for not only kids that are interested in STEM, but for kids that are interested in anything, like even artistic kids. There's very much an artistic aspect to coding. So it's something that can benefit any kid, regardless of what job field they're going to go in when they're older. And as I mentioned before, coding is definitely a loaded term. So there are so many different disciplines that fall under its umbrella. So do you want to make a website? Do you want to make apps? Do you want to work in robotics? Do you know, what do you want to do with coding? Like, what exactly do you want to do? So that's something else you should consider as well if you're considering learning how to code and what exactly you want to do with it. My last thought of this evening, and this is the most important one, and the reason why I love coding is because it's just fun. It is really fun to see what you can do with the different languages. Again, I use the coding program Scratch to code a dinosaur dance party. It was a blast. And even though I may not use coding to like code a website or to, you know, launch a rocket into space or anything, I had a lot of fun making a dinosaur dance party. So it's just something that's a really fun hobby to do. It's something that's really fun for kids to do. It's just a really awesome thing. So I am going to bring myself on camera, Alexandra, if you want to come back. And did you have any thoughts about coding while we're waiting for the questions to come in?
I actually took your point about languages a little bit differently. My take on coding is, while I don't have the skill level or not pursuing it to make it a career, I like having the foundation of a little bit of knowledge, just so if I were to have a conversation with someone that was doing web design or was working with it, it would make more sense to me, what they're discussing, and I could better be informed to maybe talk about what's a realistic process, or what that experience would be. Knowing the little bit that I know helps me communicate better with someone that is on the team that is handling a project with that.
Exactly. So, Alexandra, you bring up an excellent point. It's just something that's, it's one of those foundational things, especially in our day and age, that somebody should have, even if you're not like really, really into like a certain language, just having that awareness in the background is something that is really important. I have also included, as Alexandra mentioned earlier, in our book, our resource shout out, I have included in the handout section 2 handouts that include coding resources for kids and coding resources for adults. So that will cover free, most of them are free, almost all of them are free resources if you are interested in learning how to code. So we have some time for some questions. So first question is this something that is ever covered in school science classes? What do you think, Alexandra?
I know there's been a lot of push with schools bringing in some coding in their curriculum. I can't speak for specific schools that have included it in science. Coding is something that you can do both just on paper, learning that process, or on the computer. So it could be something a teacher could add into their curriculum.
And Alexandra, you're absolutely right. So it is something that is being incorporated into the classroom. So as you know, there's STEM magnet schools, and then of course that would be something that they definitely would be covering. But I have noticed in talking with my teacher friends, my family who are teachers, and my family and friends who have students who have kids, is that they're definitely seeing coding being done. Again, there's so many different ways to do it. It's not just on computer. You can learn how to code on pen and, like you mentioned, Alexandra, you can learn how to code on pen and paper. So we got time for one more question before we wrap it up here. And we have somebody asking, what kind of hardware or software do you need to get started? And Alexandra, I'm going to start off first because that's something I know a little bit about. So basically, all you need is a computer or a tablet. If you look in our in that handout section that I mentioned with the handout that for the coding resources for adults, all of those resources are accessible via a tablet, some even a smartphone or a computer. So all you need are usually the devices that you already have to go ahead and get started. A lot of the coding languages out there are free as well. So if there was something that you wanted to look at, it's really, really coding. The barrier to entry to coding is very, very low. So I would definitely recommend, if you are interested, that you take a look at that handout. All right, Alexandra, it looks like we're at the end of our time here. So go ahead and bring us home.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us to participate with our future conversations. Please join us at hcplc.org/contact. Also on hcplc.org/events, you can see our upcoming topics and our other programs that we're doing. But specifically, the next Tech Talk is going to be adding text to your PDFs.
Awesome, thank you very much. And that link to our next tech topic is available in the chat section. So if you want to go ahead and click on that now and get registered, it is there. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes, a minute or so here, to click on that link and to download those handouts. While we're waiting on that, Alexandra, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I love having friends with me doing tech topics. It was all right by myself, but I love having friends join me to talk about all of our wonderful topics. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everybody, and that ends today's edition of Tech Topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good evening. Goodbye, everybody.